Hi everyone, Sailor Moon here, and Sailor Pluto, Sailor Underworld, Trista here. And today we're going to talk about folks who think that since Trista, or Sailor Pluto, or Sailor Underworld, they saying her world's not a world anymore, somehow believe that means that she's not a sailor fighter anymore. You'll hear that being said a lot on Euro skits, whatever, where you'll mostly hear it from. And I think that Sailor Pluto or Sailor Underworld is still a sailor fighter, or whatever you want to call her, keeper, fighter. It's all the same. And who cares what the wisdom followership says or the star looking followership says? It's not like everything they say is true. I mean, yes, it's true that the Pluto or Underworld is a small world. Yes, it took them a long time to learn it was a small world. But somehow in their mind, they believed that since it was a small world, it somehow could not be seen as a ninth world. Well, there are many other smaller worlds in the Milky Way starway, and that would offshoot us to having fifth between worlds in our Milky Way starway, instead of only having 9. So, and I know some folks in the Sailor Moon followership make a big thing out of this. A long time ago, there was a skit. It was really a two-half one, but the other half's been withdrawn by the uploader. But why? Well, we don't know. And the first skit is that all the sailor fighters are being shifted out. There is no Sailor Venus or Sailor Hellas world. She's not there. There is no Sailor Jupiter or Sailor King world. She's not there. Why? We don't know. The first Sailor Mars was let go, and a new Sailor Mars or Sailor Rebel was brought in. No big deal. We do know that in the Renaissance Atlantic Sailor Moon, Sailor Mars was black. Or was that Sailor Jupiter, Sailor King world? Anyway, so then they finally come up with the goal they have to kick Sailor Pluto or Sailor Underworld out of the Sailor Fighters, both the inner and the outer teams. And why? Because you're a little world. Yeah. And you know what I said in that skit, Sailor Moon? I said, oh, come on, not truly. I said, you're out, but I didn't make the oversight. I said, I'm the biggest woman in the room. And you're like, I didn't make the oversight. And then I said, you brought in a new Sailor Mars or Sailor Red Road last week. Just saying you brought a new one in. And then Sailor Saturn, Sailor Ringworld shows up, which up until then, she either walks in the room and goes, oh yeah, we're not kind haters. We are the bigger worlds. And then I said, I raised you to be my daughter Ringworld. And she's like, I'll always unlook you or something for being my mother. And then they lock me up in a door at a time. And that's where that skit ends. Now there's a follow-up skit that's been withdrawn from Euro by the uploader. I don't know why. Where I'm bitching about how I want my room. I want my Stettin room. And then they all gonna fight me. And then Sailor Mercury or Sailor Quicksilver, who also is the one that said that wisdom was against me as far as Xing me out of the Starway, says that she went with me because she was worried about being kicked out due to being a small world herself. And they start saying, oh, I knew you were weird and that's uncalled for. And then Tuxedo Mask or Evening Wear Hyde, who shows up. And in this skit, he speaks Spanish English. He licks his finger to see where to throw the rose, and it hits us. Then he gives Sailor Moon his Hello Kitty tool. He packs both us up, and it's over. Now, what can you take away from that skit is that a lot of folks out there think that you can't go against the oversight, or they believe it's some kind of law. Now, these folks in 26 between FYL who came up with the belief, well, the truth that I'm a small world, but the belief and thought that I was not the ninth world in the Milky Way starway due to being smaller than all the other inner worlds, stone worlds, and wind worlds, you know? And I say, who cares? I still a sailor fighter. I still have my rank as a keeper of room and time. And even if my world is the smallest world out there and there's some other smaller worlds, it's still a follower of the Milky Way starway. Deal with it. You're right. And anyway, what I wanted to say, Sailor Jupiter, Sailor Pluto, Sailor Underworld, Trista, what I wanted to say is that in that skit, I am sorry for what I said and what we did in that skit. Sorry for, telling you that, you couldn't be on the Sailor Fighters due to your world being a small world. And that was wrong. But you said in that skit that the moon was not a fucking world. Those were your words. And yes, it's true. The moon is not a world. A moon is a stone. That's true. There are many other moons. That's true. So I guess you're right. If everyone wants to be awake and have everything match up, then they're going to have to take all the moons out of Milky Way starway too, because since they're not worlds either, You think they're going to do that? Take all the moons out of Milky Way starway? Nah, that's too much work for them, Sailor Moon. That's too much work for them. And I don't see them taking stars or stones or moons out of the Milky Way starway. I don't see them doing that because that's too much work for them. And they don't like to go back on anything. Anytime they learn something, they don't want to go back on it. So every time they keep learning something new about my world or any other the smaller worlds, it doesn't shift their mind. They are stubborn. They don't want to go back on their stents. They don't want to go back on 2006 while they don't. They don't want to say, hey, look, we're sorry. The underworld has some wakefulness. Not so much, but has some. It has a moon that goes around it. Yeah. It takes, I don't know, so many years. It takes a long, long time to get around the sun once. So it makes its year a long year, I guess. They don't want to go back and say they were wrong about that. Why? I don't know. Maybe they're too much. Maybe because they want to think they're right. Maybe they don't want folks to lose. They don't want to lose on look. Some folks in the wisdom followership, no need which arm they belong to, on look is everything with them. And they don't want to lose it. Look, I'm in a wisdom followership. I'm a healer. If I learn something new in my learning, I offshoot that to what I learned. I don't go, I don't get stubborn and say, oh, sorry, I can't go back and shift my mind on what I said or what I learned 5 years ago. And I can't shift, I don't want to shift my stance on something because I learned something new about it. That's not my mind. But I'm still a sailor fighter or a sailor, whatever you want to call me, a sailor keeper, sailor fighter, whatever. I still am in that. And if that's pissing some of them off, that's too bad. Pluto, underworld, still a world. Deal with it. Well, you heard my friend Sailor Pluto, Sailor Underworld Trista. So give us a like, share and playlist this film, and we'll see you later.